Park Tisu had been working alone for 6 hours when he heard the heavy footsteps behind him. The engine bay was quiet at this time of night. Most of the crew was asleep, and the only sounds were the soft hum of the ship's reactor and the gentle clicking of Tisu's tools as he worked. He liked the night shift. It was peaceful. No one bothered him, and he could focus on his repairs without interruption. But those footsteps changed everything. He knew who it was before he turned around. There was only one person on the entire ship who walked like that. Each step was heavy and powerful, like a small earthquake moving through the metal floor. Tisu's hand stopped moving. His heart began to beat faster. Yura of the Dracari stood in the doorway of Engine Bay 7. She was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that shifted between deep purple and shimmering gold under the fluorescent lights. Her eyes were the color of molten honey, with vertical black slits for pupils. 2 small horns curved back from her forehead, and behind her shoulders, Tisu could see the folded shapes of her vestigial wings. They were too small for flight now, but they still moved when she was angry or excited. Right now, they were twitching slightly. Tisu was not a brave man. He was a mechanic. He fixed things. He kept his head down, did his work, and tried not to cause problems. He was the only human on a ship full of aliens, and he had learned very quickly that the best way to survive was to be useful and invisible. But Yura made being invisible very difficult. She was the head of security for the starship Horizon's Edge. She had killed pirates with her bare hands. She had once torn through a reinforced bulkhead door because it was taking too long to open. The crew respected her. The crew also feared her, and for the past 3 months she had been looking at Tisu in a way that made his stomach feel strange. "Mechanic Park," she said. Her voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. Tisu swallowed hard. "Chief Yura, can I help you with something?" She stepped into the engine bay, and the space suddenly felt much smaller. Tisu was not a tall man. He stood at about 170 centimeters, which was average for a human but tiny compared to most of the aliens on the ship. Next to Yura, he felt like a child standing next to a mountain. "There is a problem with my quarters," Yura said. "The environmental controls are not working correctly. The temperature is wrong." Tisu nodded slowly. This was a normal request. He fixed things all the time, but something about the way Yura was standing made him nervous. She was blocking the only exit from the engine bay. Her tail, long and thick and covered in the same purple-gold scales as the rest of her body, was swaying slowly behind her. "I can send a diagnostic drone to check it," Tisu offered. "It will take about 10 minutes too." "No," Yura cut him off. "You will come yourself." It was not a question. It was not even a request. It was a command. Tisu opened his mouth to argue, but the words died in his throat when he saw the look in Yura's golden eyes. There was something there that he did not understand, something intense and focused. "Okay," he said quietly, "I will come myself." The walk to Yura's quarters took 5 minutes. Tisu spent every second of it trying to figure out what was happening. Yura walked beside him, her long legs easily matching his pace even though she was clearly slowing down for him. Other crew members moved out of their way quickly, pressing themselves against the walls to let the massive Dracari pass. A few of them gave Tisu strange looks, curious looks. He pretended not to notice. Yura's quarters were in the security section of the ship, behind 3 locked doors that required her personal authorization to open. The doors hissed shut behind them, and Tisu immediately felt the heat. It was like walking into an oven. The temperature in the room had to be at least 40 degrees Celsius, maybe more. Tisu felt sweat begin to form on his forehead instantly. "The thermostat is over there," Yura said, pointing to a panel on the wall. Tisu walked over to it, grateful for something to focus on. He pulled out his diagnostic tool and connected it to the panel. The readings appeared on his screen and he frowned. "Chief Yura," he said slowly, There is nothing wrong with your environmental controls. The temperature is set exactly where you want it. Everything is working perfectly." He turned around to tell her this and found that she had moved. She was now standing between him and the door. Her wings were twitching more noticeably now, and small wisps of smoke were curling from her nostrils. Tisu had read about Dracari biology in the ship's database. He knew that they were warm-blooded like humans, but their internal temperature was much higher. He knew that they breathed fire, although most of them learned to control this ability as children. He knew that smoke from their nostrils usually meant strong emotion. He did not know what emotion Yura was feeling right now. "I know there is nothing wrong with the thermostat," Yura said. Her voice was quieter now, almost hesitant. Tisu blinked. "Then why did you bring me here?" Yura was silent for a long moment. Her tail had stopped swaying. Her entire body was very still, like a predator about to pounce. But she did not pounce. Instead, she spoke. "I have not had relations in 16 months. Tisu dropped his toolkit. The tools scattered across the floor with a loud clatter that seemed to echo in the hot, silent room. "What?" he managed to say. Yura's scales seemed to darken slightly. The smoke from her nostrils increased. If Tisu did not know better, he would have said she was blushing. "Dracari mating cycles are triggered by proximity to compatible heat signatures," Yura explained. Her words came out stiff and formal, like she was reading from a manual. "Human body temperature falls within the exact range that triggers this response in my species. You are the only human on this ship." Tisu could not move. He could not think. His brain had completely stopped working. "I am not propositioning you," Yura continued quickly. "I want to make that very clear. I am informing you of this situation because it affects your safety. When I am near you, my instincts become difficult to control. I wanted you to understand why I have been watching you." So he had not imagined it. Those golden eyes following him through the mess hall, that massive shadow appearing whenever he turned a corner, the way she always seemed to know where he was on the ship. "I am a professional," Yura said. Her voice was harder now, like she was trying to convince herself as much as him. "I will not act on these instincts, but I thought you deserved to know the truth. I have seen how you look at me sometimes. I did not want you to think that I was threatening you." Tisu finally found his voice. "I do not think you are threatening me." Yura tilted her head. Her golden eyes studied him carefully. "Then why do your hands shake when I am near you? Why does your heart beat so fast? I can hear it, you know. Right now it sounds like a small drum." Tisu felt his face grow hot, and it was not just from the temperature of the room. He did not know how to explain to this massive, terrifying, beautiful dragon woman that his hands shook, because he had never been good at talking to anyone he found attractive. He did not know how to tell her that his heart beat fast because she was the most incredible being he had ever seen. He was 24 years old and he had never been on a single date. He had never kissed anyone. He had spent his entire life with machines because machines were simple. Machines made sense. People did not. And Yura was definitely not a machine. "I am sorry," Tisu said finally. It was the only thing he could think to say. Yura's expression changed. For just a moment she looked confused. "Why are you sorry? You have done nothing wrong." "I am sorry that I make things difficult for you. I did not know." Yura stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, something in her posture relaxed. The tension in her shoulders eased. Her wings settled flat against her back. "You are strange," she said. "Most beings would be afraid. Most beings would run away." "I am afraid," Tisu admitted, "but not of you." "Then what are you afraid of?" Tisu bent down and began to pick up his scattered tools. It gave him something to do with his shaking hands. "I am afraid of saying the wrong thing," he said quietly. "I am not good at talking to people. I never know what to say." When he stood up again, Yura had moved closer. She was near enough now that he could feel the heat radiating from her scaled skin. She was so large that she had to look down to meet his eyes, and Tisu had to crane his neck to look up at her. "You are doing fine," Yura said. And then, so quietly that he almost did not hear it, she added, "Better than fine." Tisu did not know what to say to that, so he said nothing. He just stood there, holding his toolkit, looking up at the giant dragon woman who had just confessed something deeply personal to him. The moment stretched on. Neither of them moved. Finally, Yura stepped back. She moved to the door and opened it, letting the cooler air from the hallway rush into the room. "You should go," she said. "It is late, you need to sleep." Tisu nodded. He walked toward the door on legs that felt unsteady, but when he reached the threshold, he stopped and turned back. "Chief Yura." She looked at him. "Thank you for telling me. I know that must have been hard." Something flickered in Yura's golden eyes, something warm. "Good night, Mechanic Park." "Good night, Chief Yura." Tisu walked back to his quarters in a daze. His mind was spinning with everything that had just happened. He did not sleep that night. He lay in his small bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about golden eyes and purple scales and a voice like grinding stones saying words that he never expected to hear. 16 months, she had said. He wondered how long it had been for him. Then he realized he did not need to wonder. 24 years, that was how long it had been for him. 24 years of being alone. Maybe, he thought as the ship's artificial dawn began to brighten his window, maybe he did not have to be alone forever. Maybe. 3 days after the confession in Yura's quarters, the entire ship knew something was happening. Tisu did not know how the rumors started. Maybe someone had seen him walking with Yura that night. Maybe one of the security cameras had recorded them. Or maybe it was just the way Yura had started behaving around him. She was everywhere now. When Tisu went to the mess hall for breakfast, Yura was already there, sitting at a table near the door. When he went to the gym to exercise, she appeared 5 minutes later, pretending to inspect the security systems. When he walked through the corridors to reach his workstation, her massive shadow followed him from a distance. She was not subtle about it. Drakari, Tisu was learning, did not understand the concept of subtle. The other crew members noticed immediately. They whispered to each other when Tisu passed. They gave him strange looks that ranged from curious to amused to concerned. A few of them tried to ask him questions. "So," said a Corvani engineer named Kethra, sliding up next to Tisu in the engine bay, "you and the dragon lady, huh?" Tisu kept his eyes on his work. "I do not know what you're talking about." "Come on, human. Everyone has seen her following you around. She nearly bit off poor Torvik's head yesterday when he asked you for help with his console. What is going on?" "Nothing is going on. She is just being careful with crew safety." Kethra laughed. All 4 of his arms waved in amusement. "Crew safety. That is a good one. Listen, I am not judging. If I had a Drakari warrior woman interested in me, I would not complain either." Tisu did not respond. He did not know how to explain that nothing was happening between him and Yura. Not really. She had confessed her biological situation to him, yes, but she had also made it clear that she was not propositioning him. She was just warning him. And yet she was always there, watching him, protecting him, hovering at the edges of his life like a beautiful, terrifying guardian. That evening, Tisu locked himself in a supply closet and called his best friend back on Earth. Kim Donghyun's face appeared on the holographic screen, grinning widely. He was sitting in his small apartment in Seoul, a cup of noodles balanced on his knee. "Tisu, how is life in space? Have you been eaten by any aliens yet?" "Donghyun, I need help." His friend's grin faded slightly. He leaned forward, suddenly serious. "What happened? Are you okay?" Tisu took a deep breath and told him everything. The confession in Yura's quarters, the 16 months comment, the constant following, the way the entire crew was starting to talk. When he finished, Dong Hyan was silent for a long moment. Then he burst out laughing. "This is amazing," he said. "This is the best thing I have ever heard. My best friend, the guy who could not even talk to girls in high school, has a giant dragon woman claiming him. Do you know how jealous I am right now?" "She is not claiming me," Tisu said desperately. "She said she was not propositioning me." "Tisu, brother, listen to me." Dong Hyan leaned even closer to the camera. "She told you she has not had relations in 16 months. She told you that your body temperature makes her feel things. She follows you everywhere. She growls at anyone who gets too close to you. What exactly do you think is happening here?" "She said she was just warning me." "That is what she said, but what is she doing? Actions speak louder than words, my friend. She is marking her territory. You are the territory." Tisu felt his face grow hot. "That is ridiculous." "Is it? Has anyone else talked to you in the last 3 days?" Tisu opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. He thought about it carefully. The Corvani engineer had talked to him today, but that was the first time in days. Before that, no one had approached him except for official work matters. Even Captain Vera had started sending him messages through the ship's computer instead of calling him to her office. "No," he admitted quietly, "no one has really talked to me." Case closed. Dong Hyan took a bite of his noodles, looking incredibly pleased with himself. "You have a dragon girlfriend." "She is not my girlfriend." "Not yet, but she wants to be. The question is, what do you want?" Tisu did not have an answer for that. He ended the call shortly after, promising to keep Dong Hyan updated on the situation. Then he sat alone in the supply closet for a long time, thinking. What did he want? He had always thought he would spend his life alone. He was awkward and quiet and not good at connecting with people. He had joined this ship because machines were easier than relationships. He had accepted that romantic love was something that happened to other people, not to him. But Yura made him feel things he had never felt before. When she looked at him with those golden eyes, his heart raced. When she stood close to him, he felt warm and safe despite her terrifying size. When she spoke his name in that deep, rough voice, something inside him trembled. Was that attraction? Was that what attraction felt like? He did not know. He had nothing to compare it to. The next day, the situation escalated dramatically. Tisu was eating lunch in the mess hall, sitting alone at a small table in the corner. Yura was at her usual spot near the door, pretending to review security reports on her tablet while actually watching him. A Corvani crew member named Jaxrai approached Tisu's table. Jaxrai was friendly and loud and liked to make jokes. He had been one of the first crew members to welcome Tisu aboard the ship. "Hey human," Jaxrai said cheerfully, sliding into the seat across from Tisu. "Working hard. Your hands look tired. Those small, adorable human hands. How do you fix things with such tiny fingers?" It was a harmless joke. Jaxrai made fun of everyone's physical features. He had 4 arms and often teased species that only had 2. It was just his way of being friendly. But Tisu did not get a chance to respond. A sound filled the mess hall. It was low and deep, so subsonic that Tisu felt it more than heard it. The tables began to vibrate. The glasses rattled. Several crew members grabbed onto their chairs to steady themselves. Yura was standing. Her wings were fully extended, spreading out behind her like massive purple sails. Her golden eyes were fixed on Jaxrai, and they were no longer warm. They were the eyes of a predator looking at prey. She was growling. The sound continued for 3 terrifying seconds. Then the ship's alarm systems activated. Red lights flashed. A mechanical voice announced seismic event DETECTED in Deck 4. Jaxrai had gone very pale. All 4 of his hands were raised in surrender. "I did not mean anything by it," he said quickly. "Just a joke, just a friendly joke." Yura did not respond. The growling slowly faded, but her posture remained threatening. Her tail lashed behind her, leaving scratches in the metal floor. Tisu stood up. His legs were shaking, but he forced himself to walk toward her. "Chief Yura," he said softly, "it is okay. He was just being friendly." Yura's eyes shifted to him. For a moment she did not seem to recognize him. Then slowly the predator faded. Her wings folded back against her body. Her muscles relaxed. "I apologize," she said stiffly. "I do not know what came over me." She turned and walked out of the mess hall. The doors closed behind her with a heavy thud. Everyone in the room turned to look at Tisu. He sat back down and tried to finish his lunch, but his hands were trembling too much to hold his utensils. After a few minutes, he gave up and returned to his quarters. An hour later, he received a message from Captain Vera. "Mechanic Park and Security Chief Yura, my office, now." Captain Vera was a Corvani like most of the ship's officers. She had pale blue skin and 4 arms, and she was known for being fair but strict. When Tisu entered her office, Yura was already there, standing at attention. Her expression was carefully blank. The captain looked at both of them with all 4 of her eyes. "I do not care about your personal arrangements," she said flatly. "Who you spend time with is your own business. But if Security Chief Yura causes one more seismic event because someone looked at Mechanic Park, I will space you both. Do you understand?" "Yes, Captain," Yura said immediately. Tisu nodded quickly. "Yes, Captain." "Good. Now get out of my office and sort this out like adults." They left together. The corridor outside the captain's office was empty. Yura stopped walking and turned to face Tisu. "I have embarrassed you," she said quietly. "I am sorry." Tisu shook his head. "You did not embarrass me. You scared me a little, but you did not embarrass me." "I lost control. That is unacceptable. I am the head of security. I am supposed to be disciplined." "Everyone loses control sometimes." Yura made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Not me. Not for 16 years. Not until—" She stopped herself. "Not until what?" Yura looked at him. Her golden eyes were filled with something that looked almost like pain. "Not until you," she said. "Not until you came aboard this ship with your small body and your warm blood and your kind eyes. Not until you started looking at me like I was something other than a monster." Tisu felt his heart stop for a moment. "You are not a monster," he said. "You are the furthest thing from a monster that I have ever met." Yura stared at him. Smoke began to curl from her nostrils again. "You should be careful," she whispered. "You should be careful what you say to me." "Why?" "Because I might start to believe you." She turned and walked away, her heavy footsteps echoing through the empty corridor. Tisu watched her go until she disappeared around a corner. Then he leaned against the wall and tried to remember how to breathe. That night he called Donghyun again. "The dragon woman nearly caused an earthquake because someone called my hands adorable," he said. Donghyun was quiet for a moment. Then he started laughing so hard that he fell off his chair. "I hate you," Tisu said. "I love you," Donghyun replied between gasps. "And I love your dragon girlfriend. Please invite me to the wedding. I want to see everyone's faces when the groom is half the size of the bride." Tisu ended the call and buried his face in his pillow. But despite everything, despite the fear and the confusion and the chaos, he found himself smiling. Maybe, just maybe, Donghyun was right. Maybe this was not a problem. Maybe this was a beginning. Tisu decided that the only way to survive this situation was to understand it. He was an engineer. He solved problems by learning how they worked. And right now, Yura was the biggest problem he had ever faced. So he went to the one source of information that knew everything about every species in the galaxy. Bora was the ship's artificial intelligence. She ran all of the ship's systems, from navigation to life support to entertainment. She had a personality that the crew described as helpful but mischievous. She liked to gossip, and she loved drama. Tissu found a quiet terminal in one of the storage bays and activated Bora's communication interface. "Good evening, Mechanic Park," Bora said cheerfully. Her voice came from the speakers above his head. "What can I help you with today? Perhaps some information about Dracari mating customs." Tissu nearly fell off his chair. "How did you know I was going to ask about that?" "I am an AI. I see everything that happens on this ship. I have been watching the drama between you and Chief Yura with great interest. It is the most entertaining thing that has happened in months." Tissu sighed. "So you know about everything." "I know about the confession in her quarters. I know about the growling incident in the mess hall. I know that you have been avoiding each other for the past 2 days while also constantly looking for each other. It is very romantic." "It is not romantic, it is confusing." "Those are often the same thing." Tissu rubbed his temples. "Fine, yes. I want to know about Dracari mating customs. I need to understand what is happening." "Of course." Bora's voice became more formal, like she was reading from an encyclopedia. "Dracari courtship consists of 3 stages: the declaration, the proving, and the bonding." "What is the declaration?" "The declaration occurs when one party announces their intent to pursue a relationship with another. This is typically done privately, between only the 2 individuals involved. The declarer shares something personal and vulnerable as a sign of trust." Tissu thought about that night in Yura's quarters. She had told him something deeply personal, something she clearly found embarrassing, something that made her vulnerable. "She completed stage 1, he said slowly. "Correct, Chief Yura has made the declaration. But she said she was not propositioning me. She said she was just warning me." Bora made a sound that was almost like a laugh. "Dracari do not proposition, they declare, and denial during declaration is a cultural formality. It indicates that the declarer wishes the other party to pursue them instead." Tissu stared at the terminal screen. "What?" "In Dracari culture, the person who makes the declaration is showing vulnerability. To balance this, they traditionally deny their intentions. This places the power in the hands of the other person. It is a sign of respect and trust." "So when she said she was not propositioning me, she was inviting you to proposition her. She was saying that the next move is yours." Tissu put his head in his hands. "This is insane. Why could she not just say that? Why do Dracari have to be so complicated?" "Every species has complicated mating rituals. Humans certainly do. At least Dracari are clear about the stages. Human courtship often involves years of confusion and misunderstanding." That was a fair point. Tissu thought about all the romantic comedies he had watched back on Earth, where 2 people spent entire movies failing to communicate properly. Maybe Dracari customs were actually more straightforward once you understood them. "What is the proving?" he asked. "The proving is the second stage. The person who received the declaration must demonstrate their worthiness through 3 trials: a trial of strength, a trial of skill, and a trial of sacrifice." "Strength, skill, and sacrifice." "Yes. The trials are meant to show that the pursuer is capable of protecting and providing for their partner. In ancient times, this involved combat, hunting, and territorial disputes. In modern Dracari society, the trials are more symbolic." Tissu laughed bitterly. "I could never pass trials like that. I am a human. I cannot fight a Dracari. I cannot hunt. I am not strong or fast or powerful." "The trials are not about matching Dracari abilities. They are about demonstrating worth in your own way. A trial of strength could be emotional strength. A trial of skill could be your mechanical skills. A trial of sacrifice could be anything you give up for another person. So it is not about being as strong as a Dracari. No, it is about being the strongest version of yourself. Many Dracari have bonded with partners from other species. The trials adapt to the individual. Tisu thought about this for a long moment. It was actually a beautiful concept when he considered it properly. The trials were not about competition. They were about showing who you truly were. "What is the bonding?" he asked finally. The bonding is the final stage. After the proving is complete, the two individuals choose to commit to each other. In Dracari culture, this is permanent. Dracari mate for life. For life. Yes, once bonded, a Dracari will never take another partner. Even if their mate dies, they typically remain alone for the rest of their lives. It is one of the most serious commitments in galactic culture. Tisu felt the weight of those words settle onto his shoulders. This was not a casual thing. Yura was not interested in a brief romance or a temporary relationship. If they pursued this, it would be forever. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it made him feel strangely calm. He had never been good at casual relationships. He had never understood people who could move from partner to partner without forming deep connections. The idea of one person forever actually sounded nice. "Thank you, Bora," he said. "You have given me a lot to think about." "You are welcome, Mechanic Park, and if I may offer some advice." "Please." "Talk to her. Chief Yura has been miserable for the past 2 days. She thinks she has scared you away. She thinks you see her as a monster. I have seen her alone in her quarters and she looks very sad." Tisu felt his heart clench. "She thinks I see her as a monster." That is what she said to herself last night. "I have audio sensors in all quarters for safety monitoring." She talks to herself sometimes when she thinks no one is listening. That is an invasion of privacy, Bora. "Yes, but you needed to know." Tisu could not argue with that. He thanked Bora again and left the storage bay to find Yura. He found her in the combat training room. She was alone, destroying practice drones with her bare claws. Each drone that approached her was torn apart within seconds. The floor was littered with sparking metal pieces. Tisu stood in the doorway and watched her. She moved like water and lightning combined, graceful and deadly, beautiful. "Chief Yura," he said. She stopped mid-strike. A drone bounced off her shoulder, completely ignored. She turned to face him and her golden eyes widened slightly. "Mechanic Park, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you." Yura's wings pressed tightly against her back. Her tail went very still. "If this is about the incident in the mess hall, I have already apologized to the captain. It will not happen again." "This is not about that." Tisu walked forward until he was standing a few meters away from her. Even with that distance, she towered over him. But he was not afraid, not anymore. "I do not know what I am supposed to do," he said honestly. "I do not understand your customs. I do not know the right words to say or the right actions to take, but I need you to know something." Yura said nothing. She just watched him with those burning golden eyes. "I was not frightened in your quarters that night," Tisu continued. "I was embarrassed. No one has ever said anything like that to me before. I did not know how to respond. I am not good with words. I am not good with people. I have spent my entire life alone because I never learned how to connect with others." Smoke began to curl from Yura's nostrils. She still did not speak. "I have been thinking about what you said, about how you have not had relations in 16 months, and I realized something." Tisu took a deep breath. "I have never had relations at all, never, with anyone. I am 24 years old and I have never been kissed, never been held, never been wanted by another person." Yura's eyes went wide. "Never." "Never. So when you told me those things, I did not know what to do. Not because I was scared of you, because I was scared of myself. Because for the first time in my life, someone was looking at me like I was worth wanting, and I did not know how to handle that." Yura moved toward him. Her steps were slow and careful, like she was approaching a frightened animal. When she was close enough to touch, she stopped. You have never been courted, she asked softly. You. Me. But you are, she stopped herself. I am what? Smoke poured from her nostrils in twin streams. Adequate. Tisu could not help it, he laughed. It was a small sound, broken and relieved. Bora told me what that means in your language, he said. Coming from a Drakari, adequate is a big compliment. Yura's scales darkened with embarrassment. I do not know what else to say. Human words for attraction feel strange in my mouth, but when I look at you I feel warmth. When I am near you I feel peace. When others approach you I feel, she paused, rage. I noticed. I am sorry. I know I should not feel such things. I know that you are not mine. I have no claim on you. Tisu reached up and placed his hand on her arm. Her scales were warm and smooth under his palm. She flinched at his touch, but did not pull away. Maybe you do not have a claim on me yet, he said quietly. But maybe you could, if you still want one. Yura stared at him. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then she leaned down slowly until her forehead touched his. Her scales were hot against his skin. Her breath was warm and smelled like smoke and spice. The declaration has been made, she whispered. The next stage is the proving. You must demonstrate your worthiness through 3 trials, a trial of strength, a trial of skill, a trial of sacrifice. I understand. You do not have to do this, Tisu. You owe me nothing. You can walk away right now, and I will never mention this again. Tisu kept his hand on her arm. His heart was pounding so loud that he was sure she could hear it. I do not want to walk away, he said. I have been walking away from everything my whole life. Maybe it is time to walk towards something instead. Yura closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her scaled cheek, evaporating into steam almost immediately. Then let the proving begin, she said, and may you find strength you did not know you had. She pulled back and stood straight again. The warrior had returned, but underneath her fierce exterior, Tisu could see something new. Hope. He had given her hope, and somehow, without meaning to, she had given him the same thing. Whatever came next, whatever trials awaited him, he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to fail her. He was not going to fail himself. For the first time in his life, Tisu had something worth fighting for. 2 weeks passed after the conversation in the training room. 2 weeks of strange tension and quiet glances, and something that felt almost like happiness. Yura explained the proving to him in detail. The 3 trials did not have to happen in any particular order. They could take days or years. Some Drakari spent decades in the proving stage, slowly demonstrating their worth through countless small actions. Others completed it quickly, through grand gestures and dramatic moments. Tisu did not know which path his would take. He was not the type for grand gestures. He was a mechanic. He fixed things. That was all he knew how to do. But then, maybe that was enough. The first trial came without warning. Tisu was working in Engine Bay 3 when he heard shouting from the corridor outside. He put down his tools and went to investigate. A young Corvani crew member named Sikya was standing in the middle of the hallway, surrounded by 3 larger aliens. They were a species Tisu did not recognize. Tall, thin, with gray skin and too many teeth. They had boarded the ship at the last station, passengers traveling to the outer colonies. One of them was holding Sikya by 2 of her arms, lifting her off the ground. She was crying. Please, she begged. I did not mean to bump into you. It was an accident. An accident, the gray alien laughed. It was an ugly sound. You spilled my drink all over my clothes. Someone has to pay for that. Tisu felt something cold settle in his stomach. He knew he should call security. He knew he should find Yura or one of the other guards. He was small and weak and completely unable to fight 3 large aliens. But Sikya was crying, and no one else was there. Let her go, Tisu said. The 3 aliens turned to look at him. Their leader, the one holding Sikya, smiled with all of his teeth. "What is this? A little human." He dropped Sikya and took a step toward Tisu. "You want to play hero, little human." Tisu did not move. His legs wanted to run, but he forced them to stay still. "She is a member of this crew," he said. His voice was shaking, but the words came out clear. "Whatever problem you have, you can take it up with the captain. You do not touch our people." The alien laughed again. "Your people? What are you going to do about it, little human? You are the size of my leg. I could snap you in half without even trying." "Maybe," Tisu said. "But if you hurt me, you will have to explain to Security Chief Yura why you attacked a crew member. And I do not think you want to meet her when she is angry." The mention of Yura made the aliens pause. Everyone on the ship knew about the Drakari warrior woman. Everyone knew about the growling incident in the mess hall. The story had spread quickly. "You are bluffing," the leader said, but he did not sound certain anymore. "Try me." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the leader stepped back. He made a disgusted sound and gestured to his companions. "This little human is not worth the trouble," he said. "Let us go." They left. Tisu watched them until they turned the corner and disappeared. Then his legs finally gave out, and he slid down the wall to sit on the floor. Sikya rushed over to him. "Mechanic Park, are you okay? That was so brave, you could have been killed." "I know," Tisu said weakly. "I think I need to sit here for a while." News of the incident reached Yura within the hour. She found Tisu still in the corridor, still sitting against the wall, still trying to convince his hands to stop shaking. She did not say anything at first. She just sat down next to him, her massive body somehow folding itself to fit in the small space. Her tail curled around behind them both. "You stood up to 3 aliens twice your size," she said finally. "I could not just watch them hurt her. You had no weapon, no backup, no plan." "I know." Yura turned to look at him. Her golden eyes were burning with an emotion he could not name. "That was a trial of strength," she said quietly. "Not physical strength, something more important, the strength to stand when you are afraid, the strength to protect others even when you cannot protect yourself, the strength of your heart." Tisu looked at her. "Did I pass?" Yura reached out and took his hand. Her claws were careful against his soft skin. "Yes," she said, "you passed." The second trial happened 3 days later. One of the ship's secondary engines had been making strange noises for weeks. Tisu had been monitoring it, but he could not find the problem. The diagnostics showed everything was normal, but he knew something was wrong. He could feel it in the vibrations of the ship. He spent 72 hours straight in the engine bay, barely sleeping, barely eating, tearing apart the engine piece by piece. Yura brought him food that he forgot to eat. She brought him water that he drank without tasting. She sat with him through the long nights, watching him work without interrupting. On the third night he found it, a tiny crack in the coolant converter, so small that the sensors could not detect it. Left alone, it would have caused a complete engine failure within a month. The explosion could have killed everyone on the ship. Tisu fixed it with steady hands and exhausted eyes. When the repair was complete, he turned to Yura and said, "It is done," and then collapsed into her arms. He woke up in the medical bay. Yura was sitting beside his bed, her massive form crammed into a chair that was far too small for her. "That was a trial of skill," she said when she saw his eyes open. "You found what no one else could find. You used your abilities to save every person on this ship. That is the skill of a true mate." "I just did my job," Tisu said weakly. "No, you went beyond your job. You pushed yourself to the breaking point because you needed to keep others safe. That is not just skill, that is devotion." She leaned down and pressed her forehead to his again, the Drakari kiss. He was starting to love that feeling. "2 trials complete," she whispered. "1 remains." The third trial did not come for another week. When it came, it nearly killed him. The ship was passing through a region of unstable space when the radiation alarms went off. A leak had developed in the reactor core. Not a small leak, a catastrophic one. Radiation was flooding the lower decks. If it was not contained within 20 minutes, everyone on the ship would die. Captain Vera gathered her senior officers on the bridge. Tisu was there, along with Yura and a dozen others. "The containment field has failed," the captain said grimly. "We need someone to go into the core and repair it manually, but the maintenance shafts are flooded with radiation. Anyone who goes in there will receive a lethal dose within 15 minutes. "How long will the repair take?" someone asked. 12 minutes, for someone who knows what they are doing. 12 minutes. That left only 3 minutes of safety. It was not enough. Whoever went in there would die. Tisu looked around the room. The senior engineers were too large to fit through the maintenance shafts. The smaller crew members did not have the skills to perform the repair. There was only one person who met both requirements. He raised his hand. "I can do it," he said. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at him. Yura's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "No. I am the only one who fits and knows the system," Tisu said. "There is no other choice." "There is always another choice." Yura stepped toward him, her wings spreading slightly. "We can evacuate. We can abandon ship. We can." "We cannot," Captain Vera interrupted. "There is not enough time. Mechanic Park is correct. He is our only option." Yura's growl filled the bridge, the same subsonic rumble that had caused earthquakes in the mess hall. But this time it was not anger, it was fear. "I will not allow it," she said. Tisu walked toward her. He had to crane his neck to look into her eyes, but he did not look away. "You cannot stop me," he said gently. "And you would not want to, because if I do not do this, everyone dies, including you, and I cannot let that happen." Smoke poured from Yura's nostrils. Her golden eyes were filled with terror. "You will die," she whispered. "Maybe, but I would rather die trying to save everyone than live knowing I let you all die." He reached up and touched her face. She leaned into his palm, her scales hot against his skin. "This is the trial of sacrifice," he said. "Is it not?" Yura could not speak. She just stared at him with those burning eyes, and he saw something break inside her. "Come back to me," she finally managed. "Promise me you will come back." "I promise." It was a lie. They both knew it was a lie, but she let him go anyway. The maintenance shaft was narrow and hot and filled with invisible death. Tisu crawled through the darkness, his radiation badge climbing toward lethal levels with every passing second. His skin began to burn. His vision began to blur. But he did not stop. He reached the containment field generator in 8 minutes. The repair was complex, requiring steady hands and clear thought. His hands were shaking. His thoughts were scattered, but he forced himself to focus. 11 minutes. The field generator hummed back to life. 12 minutes. The radiation levels began to drop. 13 minutes. Tisu collapsed in the maintenance shaft, unable to move, unable to see, barely able to breathe. He thought about Yura. He thought about her golden eyes and her warm scales and the way she said his name. He thought about the life they could have had together. "I am sorry," he thought. "I could not come back." And then the darkness took him. He woke up in the medical bay. Yura was there. Of course she was there. Her eyes were red. Had she been crying? Dracari tears evaporated almost instantly, but the evidence remained. "Tisu," she said. Her voice cracked on his name. He tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. She brought him water and helped him drink. "The doctor says you will recover," she said when he had finished. "The radiation damage was severe but treatable. You will be weak for a few weeks, but you will live. Everyone else is fine because of you." She took his hand in both of hers. Her claws were trembling. "You saved them all. You saved me." Tisu managed a weak smile. I promised I would come back. Yura made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You impossible, reckless, magnificent fool. She leaned down and pressed her forehead to his for a long, long moment. The proving is complete, she whispered. You have passed all 3 trials: strength, skill, sacrifice. You have proven yourself worthy in every way that matters. Tisu closed his eyes, feeling her warmth against his skin. What happens now? He asked. Now, Yura said, we begin the bonding if you still want this, if you still want me. Tisu opened his eyes and looked at her. The massive, terrifying, beautiful dragon woman who had somehow fallen in love with a small human mechanic. I have never wanted anything more, he said. Yura's tears evaporated against her scales, but her smile remained. For the first time in both their lives, neither of them was alone anymore. Recovery took 2 weeks. Tisu spent the first 3 days drifting in and out of sleep. The radiation had damaged his body in ways the doctors could fix, but not quickly. His skin was tender. His bones ached. His eyes hurt when he looked at bright lights. But every time he woke up, Yura was there. She brought him his meals personally, carrying the trays with hands that could crush metal. She read to him when he was too tired to focus on screens. She sat beside him through the long hours of the night, her tail wrapped around the leg of his bed like an anchor. The crew noticed, of course. The entire ship knew what had happened in the reactor core. They knew that the small human mechanic had saved all of their lives, and they knew that Security Chief Yura had not left his side since they pulled him out of the maintenance shaft. No one made jokes this time, no one gossiped, there was only respect. On the 4th day, Tisu was strong enough to sit up in bed. Yura brought him a tablet with messages from the crew, dozens of them, thank you notes and get well wishes and promises of favors owed. Even Captain Vera had sent a message, short and formal but surprisingly warm. The ship owes you a debt, the captain had written. When you are recovered, come to my office. We will discuss your promotion. Promotion, Tisu said, confused. You are the chief engineer now, Yura told him. The captain announced it yesterday. You are the youngest chief engineer in the fleet. Tisu did not know what to say. He had never wanted power or status. He just wanted to fix things and be left alone. But then he realized he did not want to be left alone anymore. He looked at Yura, sitting beside him in a chair that groaned under her weight. She was wearing her uniform, but her hair was loose around her shoulders instead of tied back in its usual warrior braids. She looked softer somehow, more relaxed. You look different, he said. Yura touched her hair self-consciously. I did not have time to do my braids this morning. I wanted to be here when you woke up. No, I mean, Tisu struggled to find the words. You look happy. Yura was silent for a moment. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it transformed her entire face. I am happy, she said, for the first time in a very long time. By the end of the first week, Tisu could walk short distances. Yura insisted on helping him, which meant he spent most of his walks pressed against her side, her arm wrapped carefully around his shoulders. The crew members who saw them smiled and looked away. They walked through the observation deck one evening, watching the stars drift past the windows. The ship was traveling at high speed now, heading toward the outer colonies where their next mission waited. Everything felt peaceful and quiet. Tell me about your home world, Tisu said. Yura was silent for a moment, her golden eyes fixed on the stars. It is called Drakkar, she said finally, a world of fire and ash. The skies are always red from the volcanic eruptions. The ground is black stone. There are no oceans, only lakes of lava that glow in the darkness. It sounds beautiful. It is in a harsh way. She paused. I have not been home in many years. When I left, I did not expect to return. Why not? Because I was alone. In Drakkari culture, an unbonded adult is considered incomplete, pitiful. I could not bear the shame of returning without a mate. She looked down at him. Now perhaps I can go back. Tisu felt his heart swell. You want me to meet your family? Eventually, when you are stronger, and when you are ready to face a planet full of dragons who will want to inspect the tiny human their daughter has chosen. Tisu laughed. The sound echoed through the empty observation deck. That sounds terrifying. It will be, but I will be there with you. I will always be there with you. She pulled him closer, and they watched the stars together in comfortable silence. The second week was better. Tisu's strength returned slowly but steadily. He started eating solid food again. He started walking without help. He even managed to visit the engine bay just to check on things. The other engineers welcomed him back with cheers and applause. They had decorated his workstation with ribbons and handmade signs. Someone had even made a small cake in the shape of a reactor core. It is not poisonous, Kethra promised. I checked 3 times. Tisu laughed and ate a piece. It was delicious. That evening he called Dong Hyan on Earth. His friend appeared on the holographic screen, grinning from ear to ear. The hero of the hour, I saw the news reports. Brave human mechanic saves alien ship from certain death. You are famous, brother. I do not want to be famous, Tisu said. I just want to be healthy again. You will be, and then you can enjoy your well-deserved reward. Speaking of which, how is the dragon girlfriend? Tisu smiled. She is not my girlfriend. Oh no, what is she then? She is my, Tisu paused, searching for the right word. My intended, I suppose. In Drakari culture, we are in the bonding stage now. It is like an engagement. Dong Hyan's eyes went wide. You are engaged to the dragon woman. Tisu, you madman, you actually did it. I did not do anything, it just happened. No, my friend, it did not just happen, you made it happen. You stood up for someone, you fixed the impossible problem. You walked into a radioactive death trap to save everyone. That is not just happening, that is choosing. You chose her and she chose you. Tisu thought about that for a long moment. Dong Hyan was right. He had spent his entire life avoiding choices, avoiding risk, avoiding connection. But when it mattered, when Yura mattered, he had chosen to fight. I suppose I did, he said quietly. And I am so proud of you. Dong Hyan's voice was sincere now, all jokes aside. You deserve this, Tisu. You deserve to be happy. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Thank you, Dong Hyan. That means a lot. Of course, now invite me to the wedding. I need to see this with my own eyes. On the final day of his recovery, Yura took Tisu to her quarters. The heat hit him immediately, that familiar blast of warmth that reminded him of their first meeting. But this time, he did not mind. He had grown used to it. He had grown to love it. Yura's quarters were larger than he expected. There was a sleeping area with a massive bed designed for Drakari bodies. There was a small kitchen. There was a shelf full of books and trinkets from her travels. And there was a window that looked out at the stars. I wanted to show you something, Yura said. She led him to the window and pointed at a small red dot in the distance. That is Drakar, she said. We passed close enough to see it yesterday. I watched it for hours, thinking about the past, thinking about the future. Tisu looked at the tiny red spark. It was so far away, so small, but it was her home, the place she had come from, the place she might one day return to. What were you thinking about? He asked. Yura turned to face him. In the dim light of her quarters, her scales seemed to glow with inner fire. Her golden eyes were soft and warm. I was thinking about you, she said. About how strange it is that a small human from a blue planet on the other side of the galaxy could change everything for me. About how I never expected to find someone who would look at me without fear. About how I never expected to love anyone, and yet here you are. Tisu felt his breath catch in his throat. You love me. Yes. The word was simple, certain, absolute. I love you, Park Tisu. I have loved you since the moment you stood in my quarters and looked at me like I was more than a monster. I will love you until the stars burn out and the universe grows cold." Tisu reached up and put his hands on her face. Her scales were warm under his palms. He could feel her trembling slightly, this massive warrior woman who feared nothing, trembling because of him. "I love you too," he said. "I did not know what love felt like before I met you. I thought it was something that happened to other people. But then you cornered me in the engine bay and told me about your 16 months, and suddenly everything made sense." Yura laughed. It was a beautiful sound, deep and rich, echoing through the room. 16 months, she repeated. That was such a stupid way to start. "It was perfect," Tisu said, "because it was honest, and honesty is all I have ever wanted." Yura leaned down until their foreheads touched, the Dracari kiss. But this time it felt like more than a kiss. It felt like a promise. "The bonding is complete," she whispered. "From this day forward we are one. In the eyes of my people, in the eyes of the universe, you are mine and I am yours. Forever." "Forever," Tisu repeated. "I like the sound of that." They stayed like that for a long time, pressed together in the warmth of her quarters, watching the stars drift past the window. 6 months later, Captain Vera gave up trying to enforce professional conduct between her security chief and her chief engineer. The two were inseparable. They ate together. They worked together. They fell asleep together in Yura's quarters, her massive body curled protectively around his smaller one. The crew had accepted it completely. The betting pool on when they would have a formal ceremony had reached astronomical amounts. Someone had started selling T-shirts that said, "I ship the dragon and the mechanic," and they had sold out within hours. Dong Hyun had received his invitation to visit the ship. He was scheduled to arrive in 2 weeks, and Tisu was both excited and terrified. "Your friend is very loud in his messages," Yura observed one evening, reading over Tisu's shoulder. "Very loud," Tisu agreed. "I like him, he may visit. I will only threaten him moderately." Tisu laughed and leaned back against her warmth. Her tail wrapped around his waist, pulling him closer. Outside the window, the stars continued their endless dance. The ship continued its journey through the galaxy. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a small human and a giant dragon woman had found something that most beings never find. They had found each other. They had found home. Humanity, it turned out, had a lot to offer the galaxy. Not just technology or resources or knowledge, but something more important. Something that transcended species and culture and biology. The ability to love without limits. The courage to stand when afraid. The stubbornness to keep going when everything seemed impossible. That was what humans brought to the stars. And for Yura of the Dracari, that was more than enough. It was everything.